What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Leo's Nerd Talk, and today we're going to be ranking every single Fantastic Four movie. So let's get into that. Hi, my name is Leo, and as I talk about movie, TV show, video game related, or just anything nerdy, you are in the right place. And like I said, today we are ranking all the Fantastic Four movies. So without further ado, let's get into the ranking. Now, before I give you all my thoughts and rankings of all of these movies, make sure to also let me know what you guys would rank these films in the comment section down below. Always love for you guys to join the conversation. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get straight into the ranking. Now, I was contemplating about putting this movie in this ranking at all, but at number 5, we're going to have the 1994 Fantastic Four. Now, I haven't watched the full movie. I've seen snippets of this film, and it's mainly because I just can't get through it. It is just very, very poorly made, unfortunately. There's a bunch of conspiracy behind, the studio and this movie being filmed and things like that. I haven't delved too deep into all that stuff, but I've just seen things here and there as I'm like researching these films, and being able to see parts of this movie on YouTube, because the full movie is on YouTube. It's just very poorly made, bad effects, really bad audio. Like, if it sounds like someone was really just recording this off of a phone, and you hear like all the static air and other sounds that are kind of happening in the background and stuff, and dialogue is very poor. There's hardly any good action, if any. Just very, very poor execution of a Fantastic Four movie, which is unfortunate. I feel like if they would have given this movie the time of day and actually tried to do something with it, I felt like they could have done something pretty good back in 1994. But as it stands, I don't have much to say about it. It is just, unfortunately, a poorly executed Fantastic Four movie. But coming at number 4, we have the 2015 Fantastic Four movie, Fantastic Four Stick. This movie was, again, just another train wreck. There's not much redeeming qualities about this movie. There are things that are fun here and there, like certain sequences are actually pretty cool or unique, or the concept of the entire movie of them going to a different dimension, and that's kind of how they get their powers. Like, there's some things where you're like, okay, they were trying something a little bit different. I get it. There's certain things that kind of just seem fun, a good way to really try something different for the origin, or try something different for the characters, and take a risk that a lot of movie makers don't do so much anymore. And I like when filmmakers can take a risk, whether they work or not. And unfortunately, this movie, it doesn't work. Especially, it sucks when we have a pretty decent cast. Like, I always enjoy Miles Teller in pretty much all of his movies. I enjoy Michael B. Jordan. Not too familiar with the other two actors off the top of my head, but we had a good group of cast here that could have made a great movie, but this film really fell short of not feeling like a Fantastic Four film. This was a lot more of a science fiction type of movie, where the point where we don't really get a Fantastic Four team up with everybody joining forces until the last like 10 minutes of the movie. And it's so much so not a Fantastic Four movie that they don't even say the name in the entire movie the entire time. So there's just a lot of things like that where character work, I felt like most of the characters were really one note. There's really no character arc. Special effects at certain points are great, but they did some things were a little awkward. The character designs didn't look as good, or they tried to go to something a little bit more robust or menacing, and it just didn't really work. We had like dialogue issues that felt very choppy and forced. There was hardly any chemistry between anyone. So it is just one of those movies that unfortunately fall flat on its face. And it just, from the beginning, didn't feel like a comic book movie, didn't feel like a superhero movie, and it definitely didn't feel like a Fantastic Four movie. But coming at number 3, we have the Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Now, I have a lot of nostalgia from this movie. From the top 3, I will say they're good movies in my eyes. Even if I wouldn't rate it that highly, for me, they're still enjoyable. And this really falls in that line where, as a movie as a whole, I can understand that it's not that great of a superhero movie. There's a lot of inherent flaws. There's some dialogue stuff. There's character works. There's character arcs, or a lot of goofiness that just feels like it doesn't fit within this movie. And I can definitely understand why some people see this as one of the worst superhero movies of all time. But for me, being 7, 8 years old, watching this movie in theaters, I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie. And on my most recent rewatch this past week, I still had a lot of fun with it. Now, again, there is some stuff where I didn't like the whole gimmick of the changing of powers between Johnny Storm and all the different characters, to the point where we never really get a full team up against the Silver Surfer or even against Galactus at all in this film. So there's not really a Fantastic Four style team up in this movie. There's a lot of goofiness that they kind of put in Richard Reed's character. They do give Sue a little bit more to do in this film, which is nice. But still, she kind of ends up being more eye candy than anything. Unfortunately, they don't really use her powers to her fullest ability, especially since Sue is theoretically the strongest character within the Fantastic Four, and I wish they would have utilized her a little bit more in these films. And the Thing also, there's not as much of an emotional arc when it comes to the Thing in this film. And then ultimately, when we even get the stuff with the Galactus and everything like that, Galactus is just this giant space cloud, which is unfortunate. I felt like if they could have convinced the studios at the time to really give us a Galactus and actually show us him and not just a giant space cloud, there could have been a little bit more stakes to this movie. And speaking of that, it just feels like there's no real threat throughout this entire film. You find out pretty early on the Silver Surfer is not necessarily a bad person. He is just trying to make sure his world stays safe. And again, we don't get the Galactus thing until the last like 15 minutes of the movie and gets destroyed in one fell swoop. So there's really no threat when it comes to the movie. But with all that being said, to me, this is still just fun. It's schlocky popcorn fun for me. There is a lot of nostalgia. I still find these characters like as some of the best casting for the Fantastic Four. To me, they embody these characters. I've said it before, I've never read the comic books for Fantastic Four, but I've been doing some research throughout the week, getting prepared for First Steps. So even though some of them have different characteristics, I felt like they did a good job in terms of the casting. They did a good job in terms of that just having fun with the movie, where for me, it is still serviceable enough. I can still watch it at any point and have a good time with it, despite its many, many flaws. And coming in number 2, we have Fantastic Four from 2005. And for the most part, copy and paste what I said about Rise of the Silver Surfer, besides the part where I do think there is a lot more heart to this movie. There's a lot more emotional stakes to this film, like especially when it comes to the Thing. He is a big standout of his emotional arc of not being able to accept or having the grief of changing and losing his fiance and feeling like everybody's just laughing at him, making fun of him. And you have great emotional moments like him with Sue and kind of tell him that he would give anything to just have her powers and be invisible, and she has no idea what he's going through. And then eventually towards the end, accepting the fact that this is his life now, even though he does have the chance to go back, he realizes not the right thing and he has to save his family, protect the family, and be part of this team. And he kind of embraces it. So I think he has the best emotional arc in this movie. You also have just the whole thing with Victor Von Doom that I think is a great casting. I know there's a lot of people that don't see him, or at least because of the origin that they gave him, it's a bit of a misstep. But I do think he is a great Victor Von Doom. He has a lot of presence, and unfortunately, he has passed away just recently. But I think he has a lot of presence, very menacing. I enjoyed his character. I just enjoyed his dialogue. I think he was a great villain for this first Fantastic Four movie. And I think everybody else in the Fantastic Four team does a good job too. Again, unfortunately, Jessica Alba ends up being more eye candy than anything, which is very unfortunate because, again, she's very, very powerful and they don't really showcase that. But like Johnny Storm, he's definitely like that womanizer type of playboy and I think Chris Evans plays that role very, very well. And I think Reed Richards is definitely one of the best Reed Richards we've ever gotten. I think he embodies that kind of characteristics, and I very much enjoy that. And it's just a fun movie. Again, one movie that I have a lot of nostalgia for. I understand it's not considered the greatest superhero movie. Most people say it's one of the worst. But for me, again, I just have so much fun with it. I think this movie brings in a lot of heart and emotion that most newer superhero movies tend to lack sometimes, especially when it comes to like tragic moments. They don't really let that kind of sit and simmer. It always gets broken up by a joke, by a certain character or a gag or something like that's going on throughout the entire movie, where this Fantastic Four movie really does allow you to kind of stay in that moment of grief and that moment of emotion, and you start to feel for the characters and start to connect to them because they feel a lot more human, even though they have these superpowers. So for me, Fantastic Four 2005 is still a great, fun, nostalgic superhero movie that I thoroughly enjoy. But coming to my number 1, we have the Fantastic Four First Steps. And I think that's no surprise to most people. I think everybody's going to put this at the best one because this is the best adaptation that we have gotten. Again, I haven't read the comic books, but I have been doing some research. These characteristics for these characters definitely have the most comic book accurate nature to them. The best suits, I think, most comic book accurate suits. You have a lot of fun sequences and great action, great visuals. We actually finally get Galactus himself in its full form. So I think that is awesome. That's probably one thing I wish they did a different storyline in this movie instead of reiterating the Rise of the Silver Surfer storyline, but they just executed it better. So it comes off being better. I enjoy the Silver Surfer backstory instead of doing I forget the name, but like the male version of the Silver Surfer. We did more of the Shalabog background and stuff like that and backstory. So going that route was also pretty interesting as well. I think all the characters and casting did an amazing job. I do wish they had a little bit more of a character arc. They end up kind of starting and ending in the same place when it comes to their character arc and their characteristics, if they change or anything like that. For the most part, pretty steady pace when it comes to their characteristics. So I wish we did get a little bit more time with them, and a little bit more of an emotional change with all these characters, and especially with the subject matter at hand, especially with Franklin. That's a big emotional stake that we have in this movie that I think could have changed the character and would have been a nice way to show their characteristics, or that dynamic between the four kind of change a little bit. Again, they kind of end up being in the same place, but beyond that, I think the story was amazing. The visuals were amazing. The black hole sequence is going to be known as one of the best sequences in this movie, or like the Silver Surfer surfing through lava was absolutely sick. Galactus, I felt like, was an actual threat. He is looming over, and it kind of feels like a ticking time bomb throughout this entire movie of like, when is he going to show up? How much time do we have to figure out an exit plan to get away from Galactus or defeat Galactus? So there is so much to this movie that just feels like it's going to be what the 2005 one feels to me, that in 20 years from now, it's going to be so nostalgic, so comic book accurate, so much fun, so lively. And I'm glad that we're getting superhero movies like this again, where everything feels so vibrant and lively, but still has emotional stakes, still has those moments to really sit and simmer and just connect with the characters as best as we possibly can. So I have a full review on this movie. You want to hear my full thoughts, but to me, overall, this movie did everything what a Fantastic Four movie should do, and I'm very excited to see where these characters go on from here on out. So for me, Fantastic Four: The First Steps comes in at my number 1. But that's gonna be it for this one, guys. Let me know how you guys will rank these movies in the comment section down below. Love to hear all you guys' thoughts and rankings on that matter as well. And again, if you guys like talking about the movie, TV show, video game later, or just anything nerdy, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you.